Mom, Dad decided to leave all 8 rental properties in Florida to me. Oliver, sorry, but you don't get anything. My older brother Ryan stood up in the living room of the family home in Tampa, clinked his champagne glass, and announced with the biggest smile I had ever seen. The room erupted. Applause, shouts of joy. Someone even yelled, "Finally!" His cousins patted him on the back. His fiancée, Madison, smiled as if she had won the lottery. Mom wiped her eyes with that proud tear. I didn't clap. I didn't even blink. I just looked directly at Dad and said, calm as ever, "Dad, you forgot something, didn't you?" His fork froze halfway to his mouth. Ryan's smile disappeared. Madison stopped mid-sip. 30 people fell completely silent. You could hear the air conditioning humming. And in that single second, every person in that room knew that the script they had rehearsed for months was about to go up in flames. Before I tell you exactly what my dad forgot and how the rest of that afternoon turned the whole family upside down, leave a comment and tell me where you're watching from tonight. I always like to know that I'm not the only one who has sat at a table full of people who swore they loved you before showing you what they really thought of you. Hit the like button if you've ever had to smile while your whole family celebrated your downfall, because trust me, what happened next made every one of them regret clapping so quickly. Now, let me take you back to how we got here. My name is Oliver Whitaker, and if you had known my family before that while reading, you probably would have thought we were the perfect Florida success story. Big house in South Tampa, boats in the garage, Christmas card smiles every December. But those pictures never showed the silent hierarchy that ruled everything behind closed doors. Ryan was always the son everyone orbited around. From the moment he came home from the hospital, people noticed him first, listened to him longest, forgave him fastest. Baseball coach, high school quarterback, the son who stayed local and helped manage Grandpa Martin's rental properties the second he graduated. Every family barbecue ended with someone patting him on the back, saying he was the future of the Whitaker name. He absorbed it like oxygen. I learned early on that I lived in the shadow he cast. Teachers confused our names until Ryan corrected them with a laugh. Birthdays meant his cake first. His gifts opened with more fanfare, his stories retold at the table while mine remained folded inside me. When I asked for extra math lessons in elementary school, Mom said money was tight because Ryan needed new cleats. When I was accepted to the University of Georgia on a full scholarship, Dad's only comment was, "I guess someone has to leave Florida after all." So I left. On my 22nd birthday, I packed everything I owned into my beat-up Civic and drove north on 65 until Tampa was just a glimmer in the rearview mirror. Atlanta gave me the first real breath I had ever taken without someone else's shadow on my face. I started as a junior analyst at a downtown commercial real estate firm, analyzing numbers for apartment complexes and shopping malls, learning how deeds work, how trusts work, how property can be moved quietly and permanently when someone knows what they're doing. I still went home, but only when Grandpa Martin asked me to. He was the only person who never compared me to Ryan. He never asked why I couldn't just be happy here like his brother. He would sit on the screened-in porch overlooking the bay, his silver hair twisted with a pencil, and listen to me talk about capitalization rates and contract summaries as if they were poetry. Some weekends he would hand me the keys to one of the rental houses and tell me to walk through it alone, to feel the weight of real property, even if no one else knew about it yet. But what I didn't know at the time of the reading of the will was that Grandpa Martin had made a decision 3 years earlier that would change everything forever. If you're enjoying this story of family, revenge, and secret documents, don't forget to subscribe to the channel because what Grandpa Martin did in secret will leave you speechless. 3 years before that meeting, everything changed without anyone knowing. Grandpa Martin called me on a Tuesday night and asked me to come down the following weekend. No explanation, just that he needed my eyes on something. When I parked in his garage in Old Northeast St. Pete, he was already waiting on the porch with 2 folders and a coffee pot strong enough to peel paint. He wasted no time with small talk. He slid the first folder across the table and told me to read bank statements, rental income reports, and expense notes for the 8 properties. The numbers didn't lie. Over the past 18 months, more than $400,000 in rental money had disappeared into categories labeled maintenance, emergency repairs, and management fees. The receipts were either missing or photocopied so many times they were illegible. The handwriting on the few that existed matched Ryan's. Grandpa watched me turn the pages, his mouth a thin line. I gave him access because he swore he wanted to learn the business, he said. I found out he learned how to bleed it instead. I asked the obvious question, Why not confront him? He shook his head. Because his parents would defend him. They would say boys will be boys. They would promise he would pay it back someday. When that someday came, there would be nothing left to pay back. It was at that moment that he opened the second folder. Inside were draft documents for a revocable lifetime trust naming him as lifetime administrator and, after his death, me as sole successor administrator and beneficiary of each rental property, plus 8 deeds of release ready to transfer title immediately. All he needed was my signature and 2 witnesses. He explained it as if he were reading the weather forecast. A lifetime trust avoids probate, keeps everything private. No public records until he's gone. Deeds of release move property instantly and quietly. Once recorded, they're uncontestable. I asked why me. He looked at the water and answered without hesitation. Because you understand what these houses really are. 32 families who pay rent on time so their kids can stay in the same school. You're not going to gamble that away on boats or parties or whatever new toy catches his eye this month. I tried to argue that Ryan would lose his mind when he found out. He cut me off. He can't find out until it's too late to undo. That's the whole point. Over the rest of the weekend, we went over every detail. He guided me through the language of the trust, showed me where to sign, made sure I understood that once the deeds were recorded in the county, the houses would be legally mine, whether they liked it or not. He even had me initial every page so there could never be any claim that I didn't know what I was agreeing to. Monday morning, the notary arrived at 9 sharp. We signed in the dining room while the ceiling fan whirred overhead. Grandpa Martin's hand didn't shake once. When the notary left, he poured us each a shot of bourbon, even though it wasn't even noon, clinked his glass against mine, and said, "Now it's done. And now we keep quiet about it." He made me swear on his parents' grave that I would never breathe a word until the day someone tried to take what was no longer theirs to give. I gave my word. We burned the extra copies in the outdoor fireplace that night and watched the smoke rise through the palm trees. For the next 2.5 years, nothing seemed different on the surface. Ryan continued to collect rent checks and brag about his portfolio. Mom and Dad continued to praise how responsible he had become. I continued to drive from Atlanta every few months, checking on tenants when Grandpa asked, fixing what really needed fixing instead of inventing reasons to spend money. No one noticed that county records now listed the registered owner as Oliver Whitaker because no one ever bothered to check. Grandpa's health began to decline more rapidly after that. He spent more days in bed, fewer on the porch, but every time I visited, he asked the same question, "Still our secret?" I always answered yes. It became our ritual. 2 words that meant everything. The last time I saw him alive, he squeezed my hand so hard that his ring cut into my skin. "Remember," he whispered, "paper beats promises every time." Then he smiled like someone who had just won a bet that no one else knew was on the table. But while I kept that secret and Ryan continued his charade, he was turning into the kind of person I never imagined my own brother could become. It wasn't just the money he was stealing from the properties. It was the arrogance that grew along with the thefts. Ryan started talking about his real estate empire at every family barbecue. He bought a 45-foot boat and named it Whitaker Dynasty. He started wearing suits to family gatherings, carrying a leather briefcase as if he were some corporate mogul. The worst part was how he treated the tenants. Before, they were families Grandpa knew by name. Now they were just income units to Ryan. He raised rent without notice, invented fees for things like maintenance inspections and landscaping checks. One tenant, Mrs. Rodriguez, who had lived in one of the houses for 15 years, stopped me during one of my visits. She had tears in her eyes when she told me that Ryan had charged her $200 because the roses in her front yard didn't meet property standards. "Your grandfather would never have done that," she whispered. "He planted those roses with me when my husband died." It was at that moment that I realized I wasn't just protecting properties. I was protecting people that Ryan saw as objects to extract money from. But he had no idea what was coming. And when the time came to reveal the truth, every dollar stolen, every family mistreated, every lie told would become evidence of why Grandpa Martin had made the right choice. The question that hammered in my head every night as I drove back to Atlanta was, how much longer could I keep this secret before Ryan's greed completely destroyed everything Grandpa had built? The family's response was worse than I had imagined. 7 months after Grandpa's funeral, Mom called me and asked me to stay an extra day after my routine visit. We need to talk about the properties, she said, in that soft voice she used when she was about to deliver bad news. Everyone is coming home tomorrow. I knew exactly what that meant. The whole family circling around the inheritance even before the will was read. I almost said no, but something in her tone sounded final, so I agreed. The following afternoon, the dining room felt like a board meeting. Dad sat at the head, sleeves rolled up, legal pad in front of him. Ryan sat relaxed to his right, legs stretched out, already acting like the new owner. Mom kept refilling coffee that no one drank. A stack of documents waited in the center of the table, crisp and official. Dad pushed the first page toward me. It's just a simple waiver, he began. We're keeping everything in the family, but to avoid any confusion in the future, we need you to sign that you're not expecting a share of the rents. I looked at the title, Waiver of Interest in Inheritance, Real Estate. 8 addresses listed neatly below. My pulse remained steady. I'd seen worse surprises. Mom interjected before I could speak. Honey, it's just paperwork. Ryan is staying here, handling everything on a daily basis. It makes sense for him to have complete control. It just keeps things peaceful. Ryan smiled, twirling a pen between his fingers. Yeah, Oliver. No one wants lawyers involved. Sign it, and we'll be fine. I slid the paper back an inch. I'm not signing anything. The temperature in the room plummeted. Dad's eyebrows shot up. Mom's hand froze on the coffee pot. Dad recovered first. Come on, don't be difficult. This isn't about taking anything away from you. It's about clarity. I looked him straight in the eye. I'm not going to sign away what Grandpa intended for me. Silence. Ryan stopped twirling his pen. Mom tried the emotional route. Your grandfather wanted the family taken care of. He'd hate to see us fighting. I didn't blink. He's not here to see anything, is he? And I'm not fighting. I'm just not giving up my rights. Dad leaned forward, his voice lowering the way it did when I was 10 and came home late from curfew. Oliver, we're trying to do this the easy way. Ryan finally spoke, irritation cracking through his casual performance. You live in Atlanta. You don't even want them. Why make things difficult? Because they're not yours to give, I said. Mom's eyes filled with tears at just the right moment. We just want everyone to be happy after everything we've been through. Losing Grandpa. Classic move. Bring up the recent death. Making refusal seem cruel. I stood up. I'm sorry you're upset, but I'm not giving anything up. Dad slammed his hand on the table hard enough to make the cups rattle. This is ridiculous. You're acting like we're stealing from you. I grabbed my keys. No, I'm acting like someone who knows exactly what's theirs. Ryan stood up too, his face red. You're being selfish. Typical. I walked to the door and paused just long enough to deliver one sentence. Selfish is thinking you can erase someone's wishes with a signature because it's convenient. Mom yelled after me, her voice cracking. Oliver, please don't leave like this. I didn't turn around. I'll see you when you're ready to respect what Grandpa really wanted. The screen door slammed behind me. I heard Ryan mutter something about me always playing the victim. Dad telling him to calm down. Mom starting to cry for real now. I got in my car, rolled down the windows, and let the hot Florida air hit my face. For the entire 9-hour drive back to Atlanta, they spent the next few weeks convinced I was throwing a tantrum. Group messages about healing and moving forward as a family. Dad left 2 voicemails that grew progressively angrier. Ryan sent a single message, grow up. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I printed new copies of the recorded scriptures, filed them in a fireproof folder, and waited. I knew they were busy crafting whatever story would make them heroes, and me the troubled child who couldn't let go of a grudge. They had no idea that the grudge wasn't mine to let go. But while I kept my distance in Atlanta, Ryan was turning into something I never imagined my own brother could become. His arrogance had grown along with the thefts. He started talking about his real estate empire at every family barbecue. He bought a 45-foot boat and named it the Whitaker Dynasty. He started wearing suits to family gatherings, carrying a leather briefcase as if he were some corporate mogul. Worst of all was how he treated the tenants. Before, they were families Grandpa knew by name. Now they were just income units to Ryan. He raised rents without warning, invented fees for things like maintenance inspections and landscaping checks. One tenant, Mrs. Rodriguez, who had lived in one of the houses for 15 years, stopped me on one of my visits. She had tears in her eyes when she told me that Ryan had charged her $200 because the roses in her front yard did not meet property standards. "Your grandfather would never have done that," she whispered. "He planted those roses with me when my husband died." It was at that moment that I realized I wasn't just protecting properties. I was protecting people that Ryan saw as objects to extract money from. But things got even worse when he got involved with Madison, a Tampa socialite who saw money as her birthright. She encouraged his every greedy impulse. When Ryan mentioned raising rents again, she clapped her hands. When he talked about optimizing revenue from the properties, she kissed him as if he had struck gold. Madison started posting on social media about our future life as property owners. Photos of the two of them in front of rental houses with captions like "building our empire together" and "blessed with entrepreneurial vision." The irony was that every post, every public display of ownership, was more evidence for my files of how they were living a complete lie. The breaking point came when I received a call from Mrs. Martinez, a tenant in one of the houses for 20 years. She was sobbing so hard that I could barely understand what she was saying. "Ryan came here today," she managed to say. "He said we're behind on rent, but we always pay on time. Then he said the house needs improvements to meet modern standards and that we'd have to pay an extra $300 a month or move out." My hand tightened around the phone. When did this start? 3 months ago. Every month he comes up with a new fee. Last month it was a landscaping maintenance fee. This month it was a safety inspection fee. "Mr. Oliver, I don't know what to do anymore. My husband is sick and we can't move." I hung up the phone and stared out the window of my Atlanta office. Cars passed by on the street 20 stories below, people going about their normal lives, while I processed that my brother had become exactly the kind of parasite Grandpa always despised. At that moment, I made a decision that would change everything. I called my lawyer in Atlanta, a brilliant guy who specialized in real estate law, and scheduled a meeting for the next day. Not to sue Ryan yet, but to understand exactly what legal power I had in my hands and how to use it in the most devastatingly effective way possible. Because now it wasn't just about honoring Grandpa Martin's wishes. It was about protecting working families from a predator who happened to share my DNA. And if Ryan wanted to play at being a real estate mogul at the expense of others, I was going to teach him exactly how that game really worked when played by someone who truly understood the rules. The question that kept me awake every night driving back to Atlanta was, did Ryan have any idea of the hurricane that was about to destroy his property fantasy? And when he discovered that he owned nothing but worthless paper, would he finally understand why Grandpa always said that character was worth more than bank accounts? The answer would come sooner than any of us imagined. The day after Mrs. Martinez's call, I drove to my lawyer's office in Atlanta at 7 in the morning. Robert Chun was known for 2 things, arriving early and never losing a real estate case. I placed all the registered deeds, trust documents, and a folder with dozens of fraudulent receipts that Ryan had created on the glass table in his office. How bad could this be? I asked straight to the point. Robert spent 45 minutes examining each document, checking county stamps, analyzing notarized signatures. When he finally looked up, he was smiling. "Oliver, your brother isn't just stealing from tenants. He's committing tax fraud, document forgery, and misappropriation of property he hasn't legally owned for 3 years. If this were a criminal case, he'd face at least 10 years in prison. And civilly, we can take back every stolen dollar, plus punitive damages, plus legal costs. And that's just the beginning." Robert leaned forward. "But there's something even better. Since you've been the registered owner for 3 years, any contract he signed, any loan he took out using these properties as collateral, any agreement he entered into, it's all null and void." My heart raced. What does that mean? It means that if he used those houses as collateral to buy that boat, those cars, or to get business credit, the creditors will come after him personally when they find out the collateral was never valid. Robert continued, "I'm going to make some discreet calls. Without mentioning your name yet. Just routine checks on public records. Let the truth spread naturally through the system." I left that office with a plan that would make the bomb explode not all at once, but in waves. Each discovery would lead to another, each financial institution would alert the next. like perfectly aligned dominoes. During the drive home, my phone rang. It was Dylan, my middle brother. "Hi, Oliver. I need to tell you something." His voice sounded tense. "Ryan is planning something big for next month. A formal family meeting. He wants everyone to sign documents to formalize the inheritance of the properties." My fist tightened on the steering wheel. What kind of documents? "He hired a family lawyer to draft papers that would make us officially waive any claim to the properties. Mom and Dad have already agreed. They want you to sign too." "And you?" Dylan paused. "I'll sign whatever it is to keep the peace. But I thought you should know that he's pushing hard. Talking about defamation lawsuits if you keep spreading lies about being entitled to the properties." "Defamation?" "He hired a private investigator to look for evidence that you forged documents or manipulated Grandpa when he was sick. Ryan is telling everyone that you took advantage of a man with dementia." The blood rushed to my head. Grandpa Martin was lucid until the last day of his life. Every conversation, every decision, every signature was made with a mind as sharp as a razor. "Dylan, I need you to do me a favor." "Depends. Did Grandpa give you anything before he died? Letters, documents, anything?" Long silence. "Why are you asking?" "Because if Ryan wants to play lawyer, he's going to find out that Grandpa was much more thorough than he imagined." "Oliver," Dylan sighed. "He gave me a sealed letter the day before he died. He said to only open it if Ryan tried to contest his real will. It's still sealed in my drawer." My heart raced. "Can you meet me somewhere neutral tomorrow? Halfway between Atlanta and Tampa." "Macon. There's a cafe in the Central Square. 1 o'clock in the afternoon." I hung up and immediately called Robert Chin back. "Robert, change your plans. We don't want this to spread gradually. We want it to explode all at once, at the exact moment I choose." "Are you sure?" "Once we start, there's no turning back." "I'm sure. And Robert?" "Get ready to add forgery and insurance fraud to the list. Something tells me we're going to find a lot more when we start digging." The next day, I drove to Macon under a blazing sun. Dylan was already sitting at a back table when I arrived, a yellow envelope in front of him. "Before you open that," he said, "I need to know, are you sure you're doing the right thing? Ryan is stealing from working families, Dylan. Charging made-up fees to people who can barely afford rent. Is that the right thing to do?" He pushed the envelope forward. "Then open it." Inside were 3 sheets of Grandpa's meticulous handwriting, dated a week before his death. "To whom it may concern, if Ryan is contesting my decision to leave the properties to Oliver, it's because he hasn't learned anything from his temporary expulsion from the family business 5 years ago." I stopped reading. "Temporary expulsion?" Dylan turned pale. "You didn't know? What is he talking about?" "Ryan was caught embezzling money from Grandpa's construction company in 2018. Grandpa suspended him for 6 months, but made everyone promise not to tell you because he was worried it would affect your opinion of the family." The letter continued, "Oliver never knew because I protected Ryan from public shame. But I kept detailed records of every dollar embezzled, every lie told, every promise broken. Those records are in a safe deposit box at Tampa National Bank, box number 217. The key is buried in the garden, under the 3rd yellow rose from the left." Dylan and I looked at each other in silence. The letter ended, "Ryan will have one last chance to do the right thing. If he chooses to lie about my mental capacity or try to steal what belongs to Oliver, then let him face the consequences of a lifetime of dishonesty. Some lessons can only be learned when there is nowhere left to hide." I folded the pages carefully. "Dylan, will you help me get that key back?" He hesitated for a long moment. "If we do this, there's no going back for our family, you know that? The family we have now is a lie built on theft and favoritism. Maybe it's time to find out who we really are when the masks come off." Dylan nodded slowly. "Then let's end this once and for all." 2 hours later, we were standing in the backyard of Grandpa's old house, now empty and up for sale. Dylan dug while I stood guard. 15 centimeters down, the shovel hit something metallic. A small waterproof box contained a golden key and a final note: "Oliver, finish what I started. Some people need to learn that actions have consequences, no matter how long it takes." On the way back to Atlanta, I called Robert Chen one last time. Robert, forget everything we talked about before. I have something much better now. I scheduled a meeting at the bank for Monday morning. After that, we want Ryan to receive the first legal documents on the exact day of the family meeting he's planning. That's risky, Oliver. What if he destroys evidence when he realizes we've found out everything? He won't have time. While he's busy defending his version of events to the family, we'll be presenting the truth to his creditors, the IRS, and every tenant he's wronged. I hung up the phone and looked at the road ahead. In 2 weeks, Ryan would discover that stealing from his family was just the tip of the iceberg of his terrible decisions. And when he did, it would be too late to do anything but face the consequences. If you're following this saga of family secrets and revenge, be sure to subscribe to the channel because what happened at the bank meeting exceeded even my wildest expectations. From now on, it wouldn't just be my word against his. It would be the documented truth against dozens of carefully constructed lies. And the truth, as Grandpa always said, has a way of coming out even when buried for years. On Monday morning, with Dylan by my side and the golden key in my hand, I would open a box that would not only change Ryan's fate, but reveal secrets that even my own grandfather had not told me. Some people learn from their mistakes. Others need to be taught through consequences. Ryan was about to find out which category he fell into. 2 weeks later, the invitation arrived in my mailbox in Atlanta. Thick paper, gold edging, formal printing. Celebration of the legacy of Martin Whitaker, printed in bold letters. Inside was a note in Mom's perfect handwriting. Please join us to honor Grandpa's wishes and celebrate the future of the family estates. Saturday at 3. We miss you. I knew exactly what it was. The victory lap they thought they had won. The family chat exploded that same day. Ryan posted a photo in front of one of the rental houses with the caption "Big things coming for the Whitaker portfolio." Madison commented with heart emojis and "so proud of my future husband." Aunts and cousins liked every word. Someone even joked, "Oliver better show up this time." I didn't respond, but I cleared my schedule and packed the suitcase I usually take on business trips. Inside were 3 labeled folders, colored tabs, and a flash drive with each document saved in high resolution. I zipped it up, loaded the car before dawn on Friday, and headed south on 75 for the 9-hour drive I could now do with my eyes closed. The closer I got to Tampa, the thicker the air became, even through the windshield. Road signs gave way to palm trees, then to familiar exit signs. Each landmark reminded me why I had left and why I was returning now. I stopped once for gas outside Ocala and checked my phone. 23 new messages in the family group, all variations on excitement about Ryan taking over. Dad sent a private text, eager to leave it all behind. I left it on read. As I crossed the Howard Franklin Bridge, the bay glistening in the afternoon sun, my stomach settled into the cold calm I feel before closing a multimillion-dollar deal. I wasn't nervous anymore. I was ready. I arrived in the old neighborhood shortly after noon on Saturday. Cars were already lined up on the street. Cousins from Orlando, Uncle Ray from Naples, the property manager who had been sending rent checks to the wrong person for years. White tents dotted the backyard. Waiters unloaded trays of shrimp and mini crab cakes. A bartender set up under the oak tree. It wasn't a reunion. It was a coronation. Mom spotted me from the driveway and came running in heels and pearls, arms open as if nothing had happened. "You came. Everyone's been asking about you." She hugged me too tightly, perfume clouding the air. Dad followed, patting me on the shoulder with that forced cordiality men use when they pretend everything is fine. "Good to have the whole family together," he said, his eyes darting to the suitcase in my hand. Ryan appeared on the porch with Madison glued to his side, both holding mimosas. He raised his glass in a mocking toast. "Look who decided to honor us with her presence." Madison laughed and whispered something that made him laugh louder. A few cousins waved awkwardly. Most pretended not to notice the chill between us. Inside, the house smelled of lemon wax and ambition. Framed photos of Ryan greeting tenants lined the entryway table. An enlarged copy of the county tax map hung on a screen. Red circles marked all 8 addresses. Someone had even printed glossy brochures titled "Whitaker Family Rentals, A New Era." I wheeled my suitcase straight across the room and parked it next to the sofa, right in everyone's line of sight. Mom's smile faltered for half a second. Dad cleared his throat. Ryan raised an eyebrow but said nothing. People kept arriving. The family lawyer, Mr. Hargrove, shook hands and accepted congratulations as if he had already filed the paperwork. Tenants who had been invited as a courtesy circulated looking confused but happy for the free food. Ryan's childhood friend slapped him on the back and asked when the closing date would be. I made conversation when cornered, accepted a bottle of water, and watched the room fill with the certainty that history had already been written. Each congratulation directed at my brother landed like another brick in the wall they thought would keep me out. Madison floated in a summer dress, a diamond on her left hand catching every light. "This is going to be our future," she said to a group of aunts, gesturing to the brochures. 8 steady streams of income before we even say, "I do." Ryan beamed, his arm around her waist, accepting compliments as his birthright. I stood by the window, suitcase handle still in my hand, counting faces. 32 people, give or take. Enough witnesses that no one could claim later they didn't see it coming. The room was packed when Ryan finally stood up. Champagne glass raised high, voice carrying over every conversation as if he'd rehearsed for weeks. "I just want to thank Mom and Dad for trusting me with Grandpa Martin's legacy," he began, flashing that rehearsed smile. "As of today, all 8 properties are officially in my name. The family tradition continues stronger than ever." Glasses rose. Applause rippled through the room. Someone shouted, "Go Ryan." One cousin started clapping, and the rest followed until the sound bounced off the walls. I waited until the noise peaked, then rolled my suitcase forward, wheels clicking on the hardwood floor. All heads turned. The applause died in the air. I stopped beside the coffee table, clicked the locks, and flipped open the lid. 30 pairs of eyes fixed on the neat stacks inside. Dad found his voice first. "Oliver, what's this?" I didn't answer yet. I pulled out the first deed of release, held it up so the notary seal caught the light, and placed it face up on the table. Then the second, third, 8 in total, each bearing Grandpa Martin's bold signature and the official seal of the Pinellas County Clerk. Next came the revocable lifetime trust, thick and bound, the successor administrator section highlighted in calm yellow. I placed it on top like the period at the end of a sentence. Only then did I look at Dad. "You really forgot this existed, didn't you?" The color drained from his face so quickly that I thought he might faint. Mom's hand flew to her mouth. Ryan stared at the papers as if they were written in another language. Mr. Hargrove, the family lawyer, stepped forward, adjusting his glasses. He picked up the trust first, turned to the signature page, then to the asset schedule listing each address. His fingers moved faster as he checked the deeds of release against the county stamps. He looked up slowly. "These are registered," he said, his voice flat. "All of them. 3 years ago. Oliver is the registered legal owner. There is no remaining estate interest to distribute." You could hear ice melting in forgotten glasses. Ryan lunged for the documents. "That's impossible." Grandpa was sick. He didn't know what he was signing. Mr. Hargrove didn't budge. I notarized similar documents for Martin personally. The handwriting matches. The notary is licensed and listed in the county records. These are binding. Finally I spoke, calm and clear. Grandpa knew exactly what he was doing. He made sure the houses went to someone who would protect the tenants, not bleed them dry. Dad tried to stand, sat back down heavily. "She never told us." "No," I said. "She didn't." Ryan growled. "You hid this from us the whole time. You let us plan everything." "I let you plan what you thought was yours," I cut in. "Grandpa asked me to wait until someone tried to take what he had already given." Mr. Hargrove closed the trust with a muffled sound that sounded final. "Legally, the matter is settled. The properties belong to Oliver. End of discussion." Aunts shifted in their chairs. Cousins exchanged glances. The property manager who had congratulated Ryan 5 minutes earlier now looked like he wanted to disappear into the carpet. Mom found a whisper. "How could you do this to your own brother?" I met her eyes. "I didn't do anything. Grandpa did. I'm just following through." Ryan slammed his glass down so hard that the stem broke. Champagne splashed across the table, soaking the corner of a deed. I didn't blink. Madison dropped her glass and ran straight for the front door without saying a word. But as I watched Ryan realize that his inheritance fantasy had exploded in his fingers, I knew this was only the first wave of what was coming. The bank vault still waited to be opened. And what was inside was going to make today's revelation seem like just the appetizer. 3 months later, the dust had settled, but nothing was the same. Ryan disappeared from all the lease agreements, bank accounts, and suppliers connected to the 8 properties. Tenants began receiving new payment instructions with my name at the top. Most didn't even notice the change. The rent remained the same, repairs were made faster, and no one else tried to charge them for fake roofing jobs. The IRS notice arrived the week after the meeting. It turns out that years of pretending that personal vacations were property inspections and new trucks were maintenance vehicles finally caught up with Ryan. They froze his remaining accounts and placed a lien on everything still in his name. He hired a lawyer with money he didn't have and lost anyway. The final penalty came to just over $100,000. He's still paying it off on a plan that will last for years. Mom and Dad put the big house up for sale 30 days later. The boats went first, then the jet skis, then Mom's jewelry collection. They moved into a 2-bedroom apartment near Carrollwood overlooking a parking lot instead of the bay. Dad retired early because the stress gave him heart palpitations. Mom started working part-time at a boutique to cover groceries. They stopped hosting holidays. No one felt like celebrating. Madison mailed the ring back. No note. Ryan moved into a studio apartment downtown and got a job selling cars on Dale Mabry. He still drives by the rental houses sometimes. He slows down, looks, then speeds up when he sees my management sign in the yard. Dylan texts me every couple of weeks. Just quick check-ins, nothing heavy. He's the only one I reply to. He says the rest of the family talks about me in the past tense, as if I died instead of Grandpa Martin. I tell him that works for me. I stayed in Atlanta. The rental income covers my mortgage and then some. I hired a local management company run by women who actually return calls within an hour. Vacancies are down, tenant satisfaction is up, and every month the numbers arrive in my account clean and quiet. I bought 2 additional properties in the last quarter. Smaller deals, but mine from day one. Not a single family member has tried to contact me directly. No letters, emails, or surprise visits. The last message I received was from Mom 2 months ago, crying, asking if I would come home for Christmas. I didn't return the call. Some nights I sit on the balcony in Midtown, city lights below, and think about the boy who begged for extra math lessons while his brother got new cleats. That boy learned that the world rewards the loudest voice in the room until someone decides to speak with proof instead of promises. Blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. It never has. The only thing that protected me was an old man who saw the future clearly enough to put it on paper, and a promise I kept when it mattered. I still have the fireproof folder. Every deed, trust page, registered seal is inside it on the top shelf of the closet. I don't look at it often. I don't need to. The houses pay the bills. The tenants are happy. And my phone remains silent from anyone who once called themselves family. Grandpa Martin was right. Paper beats promises every time. And some doors, once closed, stay closed forever. If you've ever had to choose between the family you were born into and the peace you've built, tell me in the comments. Because sometimes the hardest thing isn't leaving. It's refusing to go back. And if stories of delayed justice and silent revenge touch your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Because in the end, the sweetest revenge isn't destroying your enemies. It's building a life so good that they become irrelevant. Some lessons can only be learned when there's nowhere left to hide.